Good morning. Welcome to lecture series on garment dyeing, printing and embroidery. In this class, we are going to discuss about the comparison between fabric dyeing and garment dyeing, various problems associated with respect to the garment dyeing and its probable remedies, and various drying techniques used in terms of the garment dyeing industries. So, in this class, we are going to discuss various problems associated and also the drying machinery. So, first, as so far in the earlier classes, we have been discussing about the garment dyeing machinery and the various parameters to be considered, and the flow chart, and the paddle machine, and drum dyeing machine, and tumble dyeing machine, all these things. Now, we just wanted to quickly review the garment dyeing versus the fabric dyeing. So, the garment dyeing is when the garments are made from the grey fabrics, and then the garments are dyed in the required color and shade. That is called as garment dyeing. Okay. Whereas we know the fabric dyeing is the method after weaving or knitting or non-woven to make the fabric. So, after making this fabric, the dyeing will be carried out. That is referred as fabric dyeing, or also referred as piece dyeing. So, in comparison with fabric dyeing and garment dyeing, the garment dyeing requires less time in order to fulfill the order, and the fabric dyeing requires more time. If you consider the actual dyeing time, it may be more or less same, but what it means, the less time required and more time required is nothing but in order to fulfill the order, how much time is required. Okay, I hope you are understanding now. So, if any garments is placed order with, okay. So what happens in case of fabric dyeing? It will take some time to dye the fabric, say around 3 weeks to 4 weeks. So the garment manufacturer will give order to the fabric manufacturer or the wet processor. So they will dye the fabric and give to the garment manufacturer. Whereas in terms of the garment dyeing, what happens? The raw material is ready for dyeing. RFD goods or RFGD goods, which will be readily available, they will be taken, and you can start sewing operation. Okay. So that's why less time is required in case of garment dyeing and more time is required in case of fabric dyeing. Then, if you compare this, the garment dyeing requires low cost of production compared with the fabric dyeing. Why? Because whatever the marker efficiencies or any of the wastes which are going to be there, okay, that also will be dyed in case of fabric dyeing. Understanding? So you may ask, sir, both are 2% shade, so they same dye stuff and same chemicals may be used. But what happens ki even if you consider 80% as a marker efficiency, 20% of the fabric which is going into as a waste, that also we are processing and dyeing. Okay, so that's why comparatively low cost of production in case of garment dyeing compared with the fabric dyeing. Then, if you consider the MLR ratio, if you ask for a paddle dyeing machine and all, the MLR may be 1:30:1 or 40:1. Material to liquor ratio may be 1:30 to 1:40. But the drum dyeing and the latest techniques and technologies which are available, which can be reduced the MLR to 1:10 in case of garment dyeing. But whereas in fabric dyeing and all, it can be even 1:8 itself. Then another point is the wales per centimeter is not increased after dyeing process. So whatever the wales, okay, which are there as like in the warp direction, okay. But in terms of the fabric dyeing, that may be slightly changed, okay. Because what happens is the lengthwise and so in case of knitted fabric processing and what happens is we will hold the fabric in one of the direction. So that is the reason weights per centimeter increases sometime due to the reduction in terms of the horizontal direction. Okay. Then the GSM is increases after the dyeing in case of garment dyeing. In fabric dyeing also same will be there. In case of fabric dyeing also the GSM can be increased. Okay. So generally a belly machine is used for the garment dyeing. Belly machine is nothing but a rotary drum type dyeing machine. And in case of fabric, either a jet dyeing machine, jigger dyeing machine, or pad dyeing machine, winch dyeing machines. These are the general machines which are normally used. And garment dyeing, if you compare the productivity, garment dyeing productivity is comparatively lower. And fabric dyeing, why? Because it is continuous process and all the productivities are much higher. But for garment dyeing and all, small machinery is required. So the space required for garment dyeing is much lesser than the fabric dyeing. Then within the lot, say 20 kg or 100 kg, whatever is there, within the lot, there is no possibility of shade variation in case of garment dyeing. But in case of fabric dyeing, what happens is within the fabric also, one end to the another end, or within the fabric roll, first meter to last meter, the shade variations can be found. Okay. So, but what happens is in the garment dyeing also, one lot to another layer, the variation can be possible. Okay. Sometimes we may not reproduce the exact shade also. Okay. But within the lot, it will be more uniform. Okay. Then the pH is more or less same. Whatever is written is like one is for the direct dye and one for the reactive dye. But for both garments and fabrics also, reactive dye itself will be used. And sewing thread, which is used for the garments, should be same like means this is also a debatable point. Okay. Then last point, the 13th point is after dyed garments, no need of processing further to garment industries. So whatever the dyeing and the final finishing process also will be given to the garments. So whatever the softener wash or any of the wash which can be given, it can be combined with the garment dyeing, the garment processing, any of the finish you wanted to give. But in case of fabric dyeing, it is not possible. So that is one of the difference. Okay. So what we can conclude, both are having its own advantages and disadvantages, depending upon the available of time and the shade required and the finish which is required. Along with this, whether the manufacturer need to choose whether they wanted to go for fabric dyeing or garment dyeing. Okay, so this is the comparison between the fabric dyeing and garment dyeing. The next topic in our case is that in our class today is various problems associated and related to the garment dyeing. Okay. As the garment dyeing is requiring many requirements like whatever the in selection of seams and other things, what happens? The major problems are like one is shrinkage. Okay. Another one is the lot to lot variation in the fabrics. So until in the grey fabric and all, what happens? It will not be visible to the naked eye. Okay. Even the small change, like one fabric is treated with an optical brightening agent and another fabric is not treated with an optical brightening agent. These two are combined. So what happens once the dyeing, whatever the effect which is supposed to get, so both the fabrics will be having a different looks. Okay. So whatever the problems or whatever the ununiformities which are there right from the yarn stage, everything will come once the garment is dyed. Okay, so that is one problem. And so whatever the shrinkage, we need to take it into consideration. And the abrasion near the edge abrasion specifically the edge abrasion. This is also one of the problems. We will go in detail. So specifically, we need to take extra care wherever the elasticated areas are there. waistbands, cuffs. Okay, and cuffs and collars will be having the problems due to one is shrink behavior, another one is chafe marks. Chafe marks are nothing but the abrasion marks, which causes hairiness or sometimes pilling and creases. And for accessories, sewing threads, interlinings, and care labeling, in each of these materials, we need to take extra care while selecting these. Okay. So that is one of the problem associated with the garment line. So in the elasticated areas, the waistbands and cuffs must be fairly slack. It should not be too tight, and seam should not be too much bulky or tightly. It should not be too much bulky or tightly. Okay. So what happens if it is too much bulky? So the dye may not get penetrated into the bulky seam. Okay. What happens if it is a tight seam? Already it is tight. It may further what you call the sewing thread may shrink or something. So it will create even more tighter seams and may cause puckering. Okay. So the shrinkage, there are various problems associated with the shrinkage of sewing thread and shrinkage of original fabric also. So how we can arrest this problem? So as earlier we discussed, in case of knits, we will consider a 5% of shrinkage or the patterns which are going to be produced in order to cut front part, back part, sleeves in case of shirt. So we need to add a 5% of shrinkage extra in case of wovens and 8% in case of knits. Okay. Otherwise, you can see in this photograph what is happening. The garment which is shrunk and which is creating in such a way that the fit will not be good. The another problem is the shade uniformity, the shade non-uniformity. That means whatever the shade which are going to be produced is not matching to the other one. Okay, so which is not related. So these problems arises due to the difference mainly in terms of the fabric preparation processes like desizing, scouring, bleaching. If there is any variation with respect to the chemical dosing or time, temperature or sometimes even pressure in terms of the cooking these fabrics, so that also leads to some sort of variation with respect to the fabric processing. Okay, so what happens for a naked eye, this may not be visible in the normal content, but later on what will happen is once the dyeing is done, the shade may be slightly unmatched. Okay, so we need to take care that all the panels of a garment must be taken from the same fabric. We should not use different lots for different panels. Okay, so there are few problems which are very difficult to correct once the dyeing is completed. So those things are like, one is poor fabric preparation and variations in terms of the fabric preparation. Okay, if the fabric preparation stage, if the process is not correct, we cannot change it once the dyeing is done. Okay, that is one thing. The second thing is that the improper tension of the sewing threads that may lead to seam puckering. Okay, isn't it? If the tension is more, obviously it will lead to more seam puckering. The garments prepared with panels taken from differently or inconsistently prepared fabrics. Inconsistently means not uniform. Okay, one is maybe as we have taken an example, like one fabric is treated with an optical brightening agent and another fabric is not treated with the optical brightening agent. Okay, so what happens? Once the dyeing is done, the shade is going to be definitely changed. Or maybe one fabric is one knitted fabric, maybe extra wax is added, or maybe a softener is added in terms of this thing. So this should be removed just before the dyeing. Otherwise, that also leads to variation or inconsistencies in terms of the shades of the garments. And the fourth problem is that the discoloration of buttons and closures caused by dyes and chemicals used in the process. We need to take utmost care while selecting the kind of buttons, or the better advice is don't attach the buttons before the dyeing process. Attach the buttons after the dyeing process. But sometimes it is possible, sometimes it is not possible. Okay, depending upon the styling and other requirements and that. But these are the major areas which we cannot redo. Okay. And apart from this, the consistent shared replication depends on material with respect to liquor ratio, the salt concentration, the heating rate, alkali concentration, the fixation time and temperature. Whatever the dyeing program or the dyeing curve which will be followed with respect to each chemical and temperature wise, it should be same. So it will lead the consistent shades. Otherwise, what will happen? There may be its variations with respect to the garment shades which are dyed, isn't it? In this photograph, you can see various khakis or cargo pants which are dyed and slightly having the variation. Okay. And another problem is the chlorine emitted from the bleaching or ice wash can lead to white specks. So this is one of the problems in terms of the garment dyeing. And also the residual hydrogen peroxide in the bleaching material can interfere with the dyes and spoil the colors. So whatever the shade percentage we are expecting, the same may not be able to get due to the residuals from the earlier processes like chlorine and hydrogen peroxide. And the tension should be maintained properly such that it should be slightly loose in terms of the lock stitch and chain stitch. Okay, it should not be too tight if the garments which are going for garment dyeing. And the oils and softness used in knitting must be removed before the dyeing. Otherwise, that also leads to the problems. And the various problems observed in terms of the dyeing includes shade variation, which are generally taken from the panels which are cut from differently treated fabrics. And sometimes, that means these are the most common problems, that is why we are highlighting. The white undyed or light seams means only the shade percentage is common throughout the garment, but at some percentage, some areas under the shade is not uniform or very light. Maybe near the collar and all, the garment is dyed with a pink color. Near the collar and all, it is almost white. It does not absorb the pink color. Okay, so it maybe happens due to the tight stitching. Okay, or sometimes the fabric itself is having more cover factor such that it will not let the aqueous solution to go inside. Okay, so that is one thing. And the shrinkage. And similarly, the fabrics which are treated with optical brightening agents and without optical brightening agents, there will be some sort of variation. And similarly, even the fabrics which are treated with resin also create some inconsistencies in terms of the dye shade. Okay. Then, and all the materials which are used, we should check for the quality and type of materials before the dyeing, like the fabric construction, sewing threads, buttons, zippers, pocket linings, and the dyeing process and the machine used for the dyeing also will vary the shade which is going to be obtained, the type of machine. Even the whatever the shade which is being obtained in the paddle dyeing machine cannot be replicated in case of a rotary drum type dyeing machine, isn't it? So, these are the parameters which we need to stress upon as a technician to understand and to identify what will be the root cause, and so that we can avoid these problems from repetition. The next part is the drying. Okay. So, there are drying is what? Once the dyeing is done, the aqueous solution which will be there, it need to be dried so that the excess moisture can be removed. Okay, that is as simple as drying. One of the simple way is line drying. Okay, put it a line and then you hang them. Okay, but what happens is it is more time consuming process. So we will just analyze and then conclude which method is the best for drying of the garment dyed process, or even sometimes the garment processing itself. Okay, actually there is no dyeing, maybe a softener wash is given. Okay, so what is the best way of drying these goods? Okay, we are going to discuss that in this session. Okay, so what are the methods of drying? So in order to remove moisture, we need to apply heat. Okay, heat. So the thermal process consists of heating the water and converting it into the steam. So we will mainly use steam in order to give the temperature in some cases. So that can be either through convection or through infrared radiation or through direct contact or sometimes radio frequency. These are the four methods which are commonly used, and we will see various techniques of drying. Okay. So the drying technique depends upon the packages, whether it is in the loose form or yarn package or fabric package or if it is a cone or cheese. So loose fiber can be dried in three ways. One is the centrifugal extraction, and another one is the mangling. The third one is the evaporation. The fabric is squeezed by means of padding machine through 2 or 3 rollers. Okay, so one is what? The hydro extraction by squeezing. So in this, the padding mangle will be used, and this cannot be used for garments. We are just discussing for the sake of one of the type where we can perform the drying. Okay, in case if instead of a garment, if it is an application where it is maybe like a bed sheet or something like that, then this method may be possible. But in generally, for a normal garments and all, it is not possible. Then the hydro extraction by suction. This is also is referred for the continuous fabric finisher. Okay, it is also for fabric. In this, what happens? A suction drum will be there. It will suck the moisture. But in this, what happens is still certain amount of water will be there. It will not be a continuous or complete removal of water. Isn't it? Then one of the most important need of this drying is sometimes what happens, the dyeing process, okay, the coloration or the fixation process, or maybe a softener finish. Okay, so can you guess what is the approximate time which is required for giving a softener wash? Softener wash can be given how much time? Can you guess? We could say approximately 10 to 40 minutes. 10 to 40 minutes is the time required in case of what you call a garment process as like a softener wash or something. Yeah. So in this method, it is mainly the hydro extraction by suction, again referred for the fabric drying itself. Okay, fabric drying itself. The one which is only mainly used is a combination of centrifugal hydro extractor plus tumble dryer in case of a garment process. We will discuss the other methods also for your understanding purpose, but only the combination of centrifugal hydro extractor along with a tumble dryer. Okay. So this centrifugal hydro extractor is the most efficient method for mechanical water removal, and delicate fabrics are prone to form permanent creases and all, so that continuous, generally only for a 5 minutes and all, if you rotate, maximum amount of moisture can be removed from this centrifugal hydro extractor. So the hydro extractor, you can see the hydro extractor, the process, the outer covering, and inside is the perforated drum. Now we are going to see a hydro extractor, how it is performing, how does it look like. Generally, These hydro extractors comes in a capacity of 50 kg to 150 kg. Inside there will be a big perforated drum. Once the garments which are processed and are dyed, these garments can be transferred to this hydro extractor and simply dumping from the top. The operation is pretty simple, whereas it is works with the centrifugal force, where by means of rotation of the drum at a very high speed causes the moisture leave from the garments or the textile substrates. So it can be combined with different dyed also. So you can see the operator which is starting under. It is like a simple drum which is rotating at a very high speed. High speeds like up to 500 RPM. Sometimes it will cause vibrations also due to the rotation. You can see the water which is being pumped from outside. So this is a driving bed from the motor so that the drum will be functioning. Okay. You can see the draining of water from these garments. So whatever the excess moisture and all, it can be easily removed from this, and again it can be kept. Generally the cycle time will be in between 5 minutes to 10 minutes for an entire lot. Okay. It is not only used for this, even for a commercial laundry machines and other things also. In order to reduce the time in terms of the tumble dryer, it will be recommended. Okay. So in order to stop it, a knee lever can be kept. This is a tumble dryer. The operation is simple and same in case of a domestic tumble dryer or an industrial tumble dryer. In case of industrial tumble dryer, the capacity will be more. In this figure, you see number one is the perforated drum, which is vary depending upon the capacity of the dryer. Okay, and 2 is the inlet valve. The air will be inlet. And 3 temperature filter, and 4 is the motor which is giving drive to the drum, and 6 is the perforations from where it is coming inside, and 7 is the pulley, and 8 are the garments which are being dried in this tumble dryer, and 9 is the outlet valve. If you see the difference between an industrial tumble dryer and a domestic tumble dryer, in terms of the domestic tumble dryer, the same air is being circulated, but in case of an industrial tumble dryer, the inlet air and the outlet air both are having separate capacity. So generally in industries, as like in this figure, the tumble dryers are available as a series. So the inlet valves and the outlet valves can be combined together to process them. And this is the quite common mechanism in order to dry the garments after processing of the garments. That may be either softener wash, or that may be either the complete garment dyeing also. In this video, we are going to see the working principle of a tumble dryer. The same domestical tumble dryers, the same principle will be followed even the industrial tumble dryers, whereas the capacity is going to change from 6 kgs to, in case of a domestic, to 250 kgs, 500 kgs in case of an industrial tumble dryers. You can see the air being circulated in this dryer. So it will be consisting of a fan and a heater. So in case of a domestic tumble dryer, we can put various options like how much time and what is the required dryness. If you see, there will be a thermostat to measure the temperature. So once the garments which are kept, the air will be keep on circulating. Okay, and as the heater is on, so what will happen? The hot air will be given to the garments in such a way that it will absorb the excess moisture. So the air is keep on circulating within the tumble dryer. So this is the very simplest method of performing the drying operation. So the machines are equipped with various sensors. One is the door sensors, another one is the moisture levels which can be measured directly inside, and the rotation speeds, and the thermostat. Thermostat is basically for temperature measurement, and various other sensors to understand the purpose of or the functioning of this dryer. The same principles will be used in case of an industrial tumble dryer also, but the only change is the capacity, the operating capacity. In case of a normal domestic tumble dryer, it will be having below 6 kgs, but in case of an industrial dryer, it will be like 100 to 500 kg. And another method which is there in the principle and which is commonly used for a cone or cheese dyeing packages. Okay. So the conventional method is to give the heat directly either through the steam or a hot air. But the development which is coming is the radio frequency dryers. Okay. The radio frequency dryers, RF dryers. So this RF system has the capability to accelerate the drying process and shorten the production time. RF drying offers high volume, high speed and high quality drying and consistent drying. Okay. Still it is new for garments, but it is much used in case of a package dyeing machine, specifically in terms of the yarn dyeing. Okay. The same RF technology is being implemented in some of the garment dryers also, but not being replaced with a conventional tumble dryer because of the more investment of the RF dryers. So we can see this photograph which is being used for a package dyed yarn dyeing machine. So what happens, it will roughly approximately take 40 to 50 minutes to completely dry the package. Okay. Why? Because these packages we cannot use for a tumble drying and other things. The yarn packages. Okay. So for them, RF drying is one of the very important and very much needed technology. But for garment dyeing, it can be avoided. A simple tumble dryer may come in handy with 2 lakhs to 5 lakh investment, but whereas a RF dryer will comes with an investment of 35 lakhs to 1 crore. So that is the reason since the garment dyeing, the machine setups and all are comparatively very least expensive. So people are not recommending RF dryers in terms of the garment dyeing industries as of today. But in future, it might come up with low capacity or with the least expensive machines also may be available in RF dryers, so that the market might change. So this is the future of textile drying. Okay. So that's all for this class. In this class, we have discussed about the comparison between the fabric dyeing and garment dyeing. Both are having its own advantages and disadvantages. Based on the styling and other parameters, we need to select which one is the best for us. Okay. And the second point is we discussed about the various problems associated with the garment drying, and many of them we need to take proper care before selection of the raw materials itself, and we need to maintain all the process parameters as per the requirement and consistently. so that to achieve the best results. Okay. And the third one is the various drying technologies which are adopted once the garments are processed. We have seen various technologies. Out of this, for garment processing and all, the best combination is the hydro extractor and a tumble dryer. Okay, that is the takeaway from this class. I hope we have learned something new today, and stay safe. Thank you.